You know, there's this quiet crisis happening in American schools right now. And for a lot of them, the solution is coming from halfway around the world, literally 8,000 miles away. This is the incredible and kind of surprising story of the Filipino teacher pipeline.
Okay, so let's just dive right into the big question here. How on earth did the Philippines become the single biggest source of international exchange teachers for the United States? I mean, it seems so random, right? But as you're about to see, it's not random at all. And the answer? Well, it isn't found in Manila. It's found right here, inside America's own classrooms.
So the whole story really kicks off with this one number, 16%. Just let that sink in. That's the average rate that teachers in the U.S. leave their jobs every single year. And we're not just talking about retirements here. No, this is a constant revolving door that's created a massive nationwide teacher shortage. And if you look at high-poverty schools, that number climbs to over 20%. This isn't just some abstract statistic, it's a real crisis of empty classrooms.
And look, this isn't a problem that's just happening in one or two states. No way. From Arizona to Texas and everywhere in between, you see the exact same pattern. Teachers are leaving the profession in droves. This constant churn, what researchers call high turnover, is forcing school districts into this desperate search for qualified educators. And it's pushing them to look for some, well, pretty unconventional solutions.
So you've got thousands and thousands of teaching jobs sitting empty. Local recruitment just isn't cutting it. What do you do? Well, school districts had to start getting creative. They began looking past their own state lines, and then way past the country's borders to find an answer.
And this is where we get to the really astonishing part. Take a look at this. Over 37%, more than a third, of all teachers who come to the U.S. on a J-1 exchange visa are from the Philippines. That is more than the next 5 countries combined. So this isn't just some small trend. It's a massive targeted pipeline, which brings us back to the question, why? Why the Philippines?
Well, to understand this, you got to go back in time, way back, over 100 years. In 1901, the U.S. basically built the entire modern Philippine public education system, and they built it in their own image. They even sent American teachers over to train the local educators. Okay, now let's fast forward a century to 2001. The No Child Left Behind Act passes, and suddenly there's this huge, urgent demand for highly qualified teachers, a demand many districts just couldn't meet. And that historical connection from 1901? It had already created the perfect source.
And here's the thing, Filipino teachers are an absolutely ideal fit. Because of that shared educational DNA, they are incredibly well-trained, their credentials line up with U.S. standards, and, this is key, they're already proficient in English, which is a main language of instruction over there. They can step into an American classroom with a level of readiness that very few other international educators could possibly match.
And of course, there's a huge economic driver here. You can't ignore it. I mean, this quote from the research says it all. The salary difference is completely life-changing. Earning a U.S. salary means these incredibly skilled professionals can support their families back home in a way they just couldn't otherwise. It's a massive pull factor. But, as you can imagine, this opportunity comes with its own set of serious challenges.
Yeah, and this is where the story gets really complicated. Because hiring a teacher from 8,000 miles away isn't just about logistics and plane tickets. For the teachers themselves, it's the start of this profound, deeply personal and professional journey. And it is filled with all sorts of obstacles that the statistics just don't show you.
The research really paints a tough picture. So many of these teachers arrive and feel completely invisible in their new schools. They face discrimination, both overt and subtle, and some are even exploited by the very recruiting agencies that brought them over. They're trying to navigate these huge cultural gaps in everything from social cues to classroom management, and a lot of the time, they're doing it with almost no real support from their new employers. And this quote from one study, it's just heartbreaking. It shows that these professionals who are held in high regard back home can come here only to face mockery and disrespect. I mean, this goes way beyond culture shock. It's a deeply painful experience that can totally derail their whole reason for being here.
So this all leads to the most important question. What's the difference maker? What determines if this whole strategy is a success or if it turns into a personal and professional disaster? Well, the research is pretty clear. The answer isn't about the teacher's skills or how resilient they are. It's all about the school's approach.
Okay, so first, you have what researcher Laura Bartlett calls the transient school. These schools, they basically see international teachers as a temporary patch, just a warm body to fill a spot. Their goal is just to fill a vacancy.
They invest almost nothing in cultural or professional support, and they'd pretty much expect that teacher to be gone in a few years. In fact, you could say they're actually organized for high turnover.
But then, there's a totally different way. It's called the transplant school model. These schools see these teachers as long-term assets, as people to invest in. Their goal isn't just to fill a role, it's to retain a professional. They get it. They understand that for a transplant to actually survive and thrive, it needs care. So they invest. They invest heavily in mentorship, they help with cultural adjustment, and they support these teachers in navigating the crazy complex visa system so they can stay for the long haul.
And the difference between the two is just it's night and day. Transient schools hire to fill. Transplant schools hire to retain. One provides minimal, unstructured support, while the other is intentional and structural about it. And the outcome? It's exactly what you'd expect. One just continues that vicious cycle of turnover, while the other builds a stable, experienced, and diverse faculty. At the end of the day, it's about your mindset. Are you just trying to plug a hole, or are you trying to plant a garden?
And what's so powerful about this is that the transplant model lines up perfectly with everything we know about how to solve teacher turnover in general. The problem isn't the teachers. It's not their demographics. It's the conditions inside the school. So by focusing on improving the work environment and the support systems like transplant schools do, leaders can finally get at the root cause of their staffing problems.
So what this all comes down to, really, is a fundamental choice that every school district has to make. Are they just looking for a quick fix, a temporary patch to stop the bleeding? Or are they actually making a strategic, long-term investment in building a permanent, thriving, and diverse teaching staff that's going to be there for their students year after year?
And that leaves us with this one last critical question to think about. The next time you hear about teacher shortages in your local schools, just ask yourself this: are they simply importing labor to fix a numbers problem, or are they truly investing in people? Because the answer to that question, well, it changes absolutely everything.